On November 17, 2012, Jose Salvador Alvarenga, aged 33, had been a seasoned shark fisherman along the Mexican coast for quite some time. Usually, he'd team up with a friend, hop onto a small boat, and head out into the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean for a couple of days. Their mission? Catching sharks to sell back on land for a modest price. But that particular Saturday, Alvarenga's regular fishing buddy couldn't join him. So he recruited a young lad, Ezekiel, who was 22 years old and a novice when it came to the sea. Neither man could have known what would happen next, a disaster lasting more than 1 year. Welcome to Lucky Life. Today, we are talking about a fisherman named Jose Salvador Alvarenga who, in 2012, was lost at sea. He continued drifting for a mind-melting 438 days and covering a staggering distance of 8,850 kilometers of endless drifting. How did Jose Salvador Alvarenga survive? Well, let's get started. Disaster. Their vessel, a modest 7-meter fiberglass boat, was intended to carry their bounty of sharks, sailfish, and marlin. But as a fierce storm brewed from the northeast, the two men fought monstrous waves towering at 5 meters and winds raging at 100 kilometers per hour. Within hours, their boat's engine and radio were rendered useless. Despite 2 weeks of search and rescue efforts by their colleagues, there was no trace of Alvarenga, Cordoba, or their vessel. It seemed they had vanished into thin air. After enduring 5 days of relentless waves and howling winds, the storm finally relented. Miraculously, their boat had not capsized. Utilizing a sea anchor off the stern, they aligned the bow with the oncoming waves, surviving the onslaught day after day. Upon awakening to an eerie calm, Alvarenga and Cordoba found their surroundings distorted. The absence of waves played tricks on their depth perception, turning nearby objects into distant illusions. Their partially submerged boat served as a grim reminder of their precarious situation. With most of their gear lost to the sea and their communication equipment submerged, their survival tools were reduced to a mere handful: a wooden plank, a bucket with clothes, a battered knife, a trusty machete, and a few other essentials. Time lost its grip in their world without clocks or calendars. As the morning sun offered a glimmer of comfort, they improvised a bed using benches and a wooden plank. Stripping off their wet clothes, they basked in the sunlight, finally succumbing to a deep slumber. Waking up parched, they were enticed by the sight of coconuts drifting nearby, yet refrained from the dangers of swimming after them. Lacking a sail or oars, they floated aimlessly, at the mercy of wind and currents, their destination uncertain in the vast Pacific expanse. The calm sea belied the harsh reality of their plight. Scorching temperatures and dehydrating winds took their toll, leaving them dried and withering. Resorting to drink their urine became a desperate, albeit necessary measure to combat dehydration, despite its unsettling implications for their body equilibrium. Surviving. It's now December 10th, 2012, day 23. Alvarenga and his friend are 1,480 kilometers off of Mexico's coast. Despite being surrounded by teeming marine life, the duo struggled to access the abundant resources around them. Alvarenga, a skilled hunter on land, began stalking seabirds for sustenance. Crouching low like a soldier on a battlefield, he patiently waited for the opportune moment to capture his prey. Once successful, Alvarenga expertly prepared the meager catch, adding a touch of seawater for flavor before sharing the meal with Cordoba. While Alvarenga relished the taste of raw duck, Cordoba initially recoiled at the unfamiliar aroma, succumbing to hunger only after days of persuasion. Entering their 4th week adrift, the men abandoned their sense of modesty, embracing nudity as they navigated the daily rituals of survival. Seeking refuge from the scorching sun, they took shelter in the cramped icebox, enduring discomfort for the solace it provided. As the moon waxed bright overhead, Alvarenga marked the approaching Christmas season by preparing a special meal of seabirds. Yet, their festive atmosphere was shattered when Cordoba fell violently ill after consuming contaminated meat. While the venom from a sea snake found in Cordoba's meal wasn't fatal, its psychological impact lingered, forever altering his relationship with food. As their physical and mental states diverged, the two castaways found themselves on separate trajectories, navigating the treacherous waters of survival in their unique ways. Keeping the faith. Despite replenishing their water supplies during a recent storm and securing a more consistent food source, Cordoba's mental state deteriorated. Both men were hydrated now, but since the incident with the snake, Cordoba adamantly refused to eat raw birds. As Cordoba wasted away, his physical decline became apparent. His once muscular arms now resembled sticks, and his thighs were reduced to mere shadows. In a moment of dark humor, Cordoba half-jokingly asked Alvarenga if he was planning to eat him. Alvarenga dismissed the idea, pointing out their stock of turtles, birds, and fish. Alvarenga resorted to breaking one wing bone to prevent the captive birds from escaping, which was a cruel necessity for survival. Alvarenga's hunting skills improved, ensuring a steady supply of birds for himself, though Cordoba's aversion to food persisted. He made Alvarenga promise not to eat him if he died, expressing a morbid preference to be tied to the boat's prow instead. Despite Alvarenga's reassurances, the specter of death loomed large over their dwindling resources. Cordoba, consumed by despair, contemplated a suicidal plunge into the shark-infested waters. Alvarenga intervened, forcibly confining him to the icebox to prevent rash actions. Their conversations oscillated between defiance and resignation, reflecting the stark realities of their trouble. Tragically, Cordoba's condition worsened, culminating in his sudden death. Alvarenga, grappling with overwhelming grief and loneliness, found solace in an illusion, engaging in one-sided conversations with the lifeless body, a coping mechanism to stave off the crushing isolation. As days passed, Alvarenga's sanity waned, his desperate attempts to maintain a semblance of companionship with the corpse highlighting his descent into madness. Despite his initial reluctance, he eventually bid farewell to Cordoba, an act tinged with both sorrow and relief, marking the end of a harrowing chapter in his odyssey of survival. Rescue. With over a decade of experience at sea, Alvarenga attributed his survival partly to his navigational skills and his unwavering optimism and belief in divine intervention. Despite the hardships, he focused on finding sustenance, praying, and singing hymns even in the darkest moments. Although numerous cargo ships passed by without noticing him, Alvarenga held on to faith, believing God would guide his rescue. On January 30th, 2014, after 14 months adrift and covering a staggering distance of 8,850 kilometers of endless drifting, he spotted mountains and swam towards what turned out to be the Marshall Islands. Collapsing on the sand in relief, he was soon discovered by locals, who communicated through gestures and provided much-needed assistance. Transported to the main hospital, Alvarenga's appearance, with tattered clothes and wild hair from his ordeal, made him a media sensation practically overnight. Adjusting to the sudden attention after solitary confinement proved challenging, yet Alvarenga remained grateful for his improbable rescue and the newfound human connection he experienced. Hospitalized and then flown to El Salvador, he tearfully reunited with his overjoyed parents and daughter. While some questioned the authenticity of his incredible survival story, doctors' examinations and oceanographers' analysis of his journey, factoring in prevailing winds and currents, overwhelmingly supported his account. In April 2014, Alvarenga's lawyer confirmed that he had passed a lie detector test. So, what would you have done if you were in Jose Salvador Alvarenga's shoes?